Sean is going to be all over you.
Okay, I promise not to light this on fire this month, okay? So this is my tool for the challenge. Basically, it's a shear scraper. I use these little screws here so I could flip it around really easy instead of using double stick tape. So you can go right or left. And that's my tool. I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
All right, next.
Who else? Yeah. Don't be shy, folks. Jump right up there. Show us what you got.
I actually did a combination of low tech, no tech, and higher tech. PVC pipe with some wood inserts and then threading. This is good when you travel because it's very light and you can reverse your tool and put it inside there. It doesn't wobble around. This is 6061 metal, aluminum, and then go to Home Depot or your favorite box store, pick up some tubing. This gets turned down. It's 1 inch, but it gets turned down with just a scraper or a parting tool and then threaded. Cut your hole whenever you choose to. I only did it on one end. It doesn't go all the way through. It just goes about 3 inches in. Make sure when you put the tubing on that you have liquid soap in there. It slides right on, evaporates right out. If you don't, you can lose a lot of hair because you're pulling your hair out trying to get it on. The last one I did was 2 separate sizes. These are both 1 1/4 inches. And for a lot of people, that's the right size for their hand. But for some people, like Jim Reynolds, who has a large hand, if you've ever shaken hands with Jim, you know you don't have a hand afterwards because it just goes right into his. He's got a large hand. I looked at doing a Johannes
Trilobed.
Johannes handle, which is actually a scooped out handle in 3 different areas. What you're supposed to do is have one hitch the part of your knuckles underneath your hand, the second hits your fingertips, and the third hits your thumb. And that way you know wherever the flute is, it's always on your thumb. So you turn or whatever. But not everybody has the same size hand. So this is a 1 1/2 inch one, which fits a lot of people just fine. But for big hands, these help prevent carpal tunnel, elbow problems, shoulder problems from having to do this all the time. And you can make them on your own. This is apple, this is walnut, is oak. And all you do it with is either a router while you've got the piece on your lathe or a Dremel tool and just carve it out. And it really makes a big difference. Your feel, if you get a chance, feel this because it gives you the opportunity to hold it without really having to hold it. It fits. Thank you.
I know I'm going to mess this up. Stand on the... Okay. Well, when I first joined the club, we basically met one evening a month, and that was about it. And then at some point in time, we started going out to various venues like Deanna Rose or the Tool Show or something like that. When we first started doing that, we'd just throw basically everything we owned, every tool we owned in our bag and lug it out there. That got heavy real fast. So somebody, and I'm not sure who, came up with the idea that we could take one handle and make it fit several different tools and go out to a venue like that and lighten our load quite a bit. There's various ways to do that, but the way I started out with was, first of all, with brass, and that was a little bit heavy, and then we figured out we could do the aluminum, and that's the bulk of the tool handle making that I make now. This particular tool handle is one that I take out when we're turning tops. It appeals to my 5- and 6-year-old customers, and It works very well. So now we just take one handle and 6 or 7 tool steels and go out, and we don't have to worry about sharpening or anything like that. Thank you very much. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, you can turn both this, I think it's 3060 brass, and I forget what kind of aluminum it is, but you can turn those on your lathe and drill them and make the metal part in your shop. Gosh, it's hard to follow those guys up. This is just a scrap of oak that I made a tool handle out of. Got tired of people making fun of me for still using my Craftsman scraper, but I was too cheap to buy one with a handle. And then I brought this one along. This is a one-way ferrule that also has the nut in it or the knurl nut that you can take out and move your change out your blades, but it just makes things quite a bit easier to get that already prefabricated. It is the ferrule, so there's no need to make a ferrule as well.
This is my the tool I used last month for the Jason Clark, what do you call it? Not hollowing, but separating tool. I took and I did his football shaped tool or tool handle, and ended up I had it just a little bit off center on one side, but when it worked out fine because it gives me a place to put my thumb, and it centers up right in the palm, so it won't twist on you when you go to part off your bowl or your whatever you're doing with the box or the bowl or whatever. So that's my handle.
This one's no doubt the biggest, ugliest tool that was over there. It's if you follow YouTube, there's a guy, Robo Hippie, that has all kinds of videos, and this is his big, ugly tool. It's a piece of tan tongue that is supposed to stay sharp really well. I haven't used it enough to tell you whether that's true or not, but it's silver soldered onto just a piece of steel. This is Osage orange, and rather than sand it smooth, I used a Harbor Freight scaler, pneumatic scaler, to just dent it and put some texture on it. So,
What's the metal again? What was it?
tan tongue, T-A-N-T-U-N-G, and I just it's somebody here could probably tell you better than me, but it's supposed they use he turns a lot of madrone and big leaf cedar on the West Coast, and he uses it as a roughing tool for roughing out bowls as opposed to using gouges. And so I made a couple of them just to try it out, and I'll have a better report somewhere down the line.
This one here probably isn't going to win any awards for design or anything else, but I just started turning here in January, and when I first came to class, Dave, and I think Dave's already gone, but anyhow, he came over to me because I had this big block of wood, and he said, no, he said, let me give you a couple of pieces. So he gave me a couple of pieces of sycamore, and one of them I used to turn on it, and the other one I took home and I made a handle for it, so it means something to me. So anyhow.
Hi. This is what you call a mallet or a hammer. And when I first started turning, I realized I need to have some wood mallets to beat things together, especially beat the mandrels and chucks and things out of the lathe, and especially beating them into the end. And if you use a bit of metal, very quickly, you mush them out the end. So I've got probably 2 or 3 or 4 of these in the shop. And I qualify because here's my handle. And this is hedge, and it's a pretty massive honker. And I've got one other bit of news to report. It's kind of bittersweet. I will be leaving you all. I just accepted a job with a design build construction firm up in Brookings, South Dakota. And I will be starting the 30th of April. So, yeah, I'll miss y'all. So I'm going to leave this behind just as a little gift and a little memorial. I'm going to keep my membership current, and so you'll be seeing me around.
I received this bit right here from Larry Sumner when he wanted one of the things here, and so I had to make a handle. So I went out to my firewood and got this piece of pecan, and that's what she is, just a basic little handle.
Needless to say, I went down to Metal by the Foot and got a foot. Well, I got 2 feet. Made a small handle here and a big one here, and I found how to get this on. Do not microwave the plastic. It's so dang hot you can't touch it. So you put it in hot water, you put it on here, and then when it slides to the stop, you stick a fork in here and then run it under hot water, and then it slides the rest of the way. And this one here, I tried one of those one-way things, and it's pretty neat. The only trouble is that taper. To get that thing exactly right, they sell a little gauge to do it, and it works fine. And they say to leave a 1/4 inch here, so when it gets loose, you can just tighten it up. This thing won't move, and broke 2 strap wrenches trying to take it off. Yeah.
This is my attempt to make a tool. I think it qualifies. This is 2-inch piece oak, and use JB Weld to go in and anchor this carbon steel tool, and it's ground on like a scraper, and works good on going in the bottom of the holes. And the other thing, after the demo we had here a 3 weeks ago, I did an offset turn on this, put this in the end of the chuck, and 3/4 inch off on the other end, and it's got, you know, some nice contours to it. And I figured out, well, if you look at the tool, that's where you want to move your offset, so that it's taking away the bottom part of it. And then if you use a long arc on your cutting tool, you can get the contours that way. And then I have a bunch of brass fittings in the basement that, you know, and my little Maximat milling machine lathe. So I've machined off a bunch of brass and put that on here and potted that in with JB Weld, and I put that up against most any wood piece I can find.
Well, the handle broke off my Sorby hollowing tool when a ball flew off the lathe and hit it. So I made a new handle out of walnut from the Lewisburg golf course and turned that. Got a piece of pipe out of the dumpster. Looks okay, I guess.
Some of you may be familiar with the Grizzly annual scratch and dent sale in Springfield, and if you aren't, that's one of the greatest people watching events I think you can get in a year. But anyway, I'm down one of my early excursions to the scratch and dent sale, and late in the afternoon there was all kinds of these exotic woods laying there at a terrific price. Well, this was early in my career, so I didn't know what I was buying, but they had it marked out about 20 cents on the dollar, so I bought a whole bunch of 8/4 by 6 or 8/4 by 8 wood. Well, it turns out it was bobinga. And you know, kind of you go through serious phases or different phases as you get into your woodworking. You start off with your craftsman tools, and then one day you buy a piece of Thompson steel, and you got to have a handle on it. So, hey, maybe I'll do that Bobinga stuff. Yeah, that looked pretty cool, you know. And 15-cent copper coupling from the hardware store, and a little bit of two-part epoxy, and you've got that. And then then Kevin comes up with his tools, and he doesn't provide them with handles, so I had to go find some more Bobinga. Anyway, I've got about 12 of my turning tools that are Bobinga, and I'll tell you that they're pretty neat looking, I think. But, you know, 1 inch, 3/4, and 1/2 inch couplings make great ferrules. And, you know, just basically what I do is I turn it down until it's really, really tight. In fact, you can't quite get it on. And then I take the tailstock, and then I just force it all the way down. Then I finish turning it right down to the metal, but works out pretty neat.
This is mulberry from the backyard. It has Yorkshire grit and Hampshire sheen on it. And it even stands, so if I can make it into a candle holder, I guess.
Okay. This is Yellow Heart with Paduke is the inlay. And this was a joint for electrical conduit. So I cut it in half, and it's already, it had the hole, the threadings wasn't right, so I had to rethread it, but it saves some drilling. And then this is roasted walnut, so it gets real dark. I'm sorry, maple, roasted maple. So that's why it's dark, and then the inlay is just maple. So that's it. Pardon? I bought it roasted. I have no idea how they do that. It's heat treated. As far as turning wood, I didn't like it because the fibers are not as the same as what you're used to as in regular aged wood or something like that. So, but it's very pretty, and this has been the inlay. Where are you at? Okay, there you go. Down there. And this is just the technique that we learned from Ed. And I was doing a couple bottle stoppers for my kids when I was getting ready to do the handles, and I thought, well, I mean, it's a square piece of wood. You can put one of these at the back of it, and so it was kind of fun to do that.
I had some laminated oak at home, been laying there since I think we moved into the house in probably 93. So I thought I'd turn a handle. So I turned the handle and, all right, I'll make a mallet out of it. And I drilled a hole in the head, and I turned the tenon too small on the handle, so I had to kind of start over. So I made a tenon to go into the head. So there's a tenon that goes part way. Had to drill a hole into the handle and another hole into the head. So there's a tenon about that long between the head and the handle that's holding it all together. So it's a little more of your traditional handles that you've got over there. It's not just the handle stuck into the head. So I think it'll make a pretty good mallet. I hope it does. I hope it stays together. It's more of a functional tool than it is for a good-looking tool. I hope it stays together. I have a couple of mallets at home that I use for my own reasons at home. We're short on mallets back there in the shop, so this one's going to be laying on the table. And Sean, when the meeting's over, you can pick this one up, put it in the shop.
This is a Thompson tool, and one of the issues I have is telling the tools apart. So I have several tools with the handles are maple that I've used acrylic paints and painted them crayon, the candy colors. So it works. I've got a blue one and a red one in different colors, and that works out real good for me. And sometimes I also like to use nice wood when I make my handles, and this is a piece of the marimba key seconds that they have over at Metro Hardwoods. It's some sort of a Honduras or Guatemalan rosewood. It's really a pretty good deal, and every time I go in there I seem to buy extras, and I have a whole box full of them at home. I need to take some back and sell them to Jeff rather than purchasing from them. The ferrules I use are some, I like brass better than copper, and Metal by the Foot has some brass tubing that's a little thicker than the hobby tubing you can buy. This is about a 32nd inch thick, and they have several diameters. And I like these for ferrules. The hard part is cutting it, and I figured out a way to cut it using some metal cutting tools, and I just chuck it into my lathe and make it work. I had this wood carving tool for a long time. I think I bought it in 1972 at a little hardware store when I was in the military on a weekend trip, but the trip was in Oberammergau, Germany, so it was a real nice carving tool, and I've got several of them, but I never liked the handle, and I got this piece of what was sold to me as boxwood, although it really, for boxwood, it doesn't hold threads very good, so it's either a different form of boxwood or something else, so I decided to make other things with it. And last month Mike was talking about tools rolling, and what I decided to do, I made this tool and then used some hand planes, and after I turned it, I put the flats on it to make it octagonal. And so anyway, that's it.
Well, this is from the Jason Clark hands-on, and Mike was saying, wouldn't that look good with a Celtic knot in it? Well, so I had to do a Celtic knot in it. And this side it's maple and purple heart. This side, each of the angles is different. There's no two angles. I mean, the angles are different on each cut. So I think I started out at 20 and then went up as far as I think it was 60. And if I get one, then I just had to make sure I had enough wood to keep it from going off the end. And I tried to get it, so I haven't used it yet, but I'll try and use it. For the next project.
I'm tired of his. That's always how I look in the pictures. Good friend gave me a nice piece of steel that it is ground to be a badan. So I made a handle out of some cherry back there. It's just got a copper ferrule on it, and I have not. I'm going to epoxy that in, and I think he was saying to make some grooves in this to make it not want to back out. Walnut oil. I was trying to remember what I put on it. Just cherry with walnut oil on it, and it's pretty color.
got, am I in the right spot? I got I needed another rasp, you know, and what the Lee Veritas guys had. Anyway, I just got this, and I needed a handle for it. I'd done work with, this was about 10 years ago now, with, I sponsored a bunch of 14 arthritis patients in doing adaptive and assistive devices and so forth. Did a lot of ergonomics, and I made this handle, which for like a file is really good because you grip it here and it goes in the palm of the hand. So I got the pressure here, then I got a bit larger diameter so I can twist it and control it easier. I just like this handle. This shape works for screwdrivers and a lot of other things like that you would be pushing with your palm and needing to twist. So anyway, I forgot that it was actually a turning tool, but I made this too. So this is the ultra thin parting tool. Now I plan to have a bunch of these available, but the bandsaw blades I took to a professional knife maker, and he's got a hot soak oven that to heat treat the steel so that it will be hardened and tempered right so it doesn't blow up or anything. But anyway, we'll go over here and do the challenge. If everyone is gone, we'll do a drawing for the tool, and this is the tool this month. So here we go.
How's this? Great. Well, somebody gave me this red oak log. It had really ugly color, so decided to dye the outside of it black, and then I sanded it to get this contrast. At the symposium, one of the vendors had some pearlescent pigments, dry pigments. So in the first coat of epoxy that I put on the outside of this, I put some of the pearlescent in there, and it gives it some color and some character. Dyed the inside a different color.
That's all epoxy then, the coating on it?
Epoxy, and then the last coat was two components.
Okay. I've been making boxes. This is the only thing special about this is this. See it from the inside or the outside. Called a picture frame box. So you just pick a contrasting wood. This was, I think I made, no, I guess I haven't made this here. This is the thing that you see through. It's got circles on one side and then off-center ones on the other. And what was interesting about this is most of them I've been making, there's a little handle here for the lid, and it's very inconvenient to use. It's not very big. And someone suggested that it might be more interesting to have this off-center side visible, and so putting the handle on that side is even more of a problem. I figured out ways to do it, but I didn't want to. And so what I did was recut the bottom so it just comes off real easy, and you can just flip it around. And you don't need a handle on the lid itself. No threads. But just so you guys don't go into withdrawal, I made some pocket boxes. And these have 20 threads to the inch on them. They're kind of fun. I mean, I carried my business card around in them for 15 years or so, but I suspect this is more for pills or something like that, little bitty things. So.
Okay. Have 3 hollow forms. This is a piece of walnut burl. Neighbor of mine had he had a pond dug and had a walnut tree stump pulled out, and he'd taken the time to pressure wash the thing and get it up on a pallet, and had it sitting around for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And every time I saw him, I asked him if he would give me that stump, and he'd said no, because he was wanting to make a coffee table or something out of it. And then finally I badgered him after 4 years, and he said yes. So I drove over with the tractor and picked it up right then. But it's some really pretty wood. I have some more of that to also do. This is a piece of sycamore burl that actually didn't work out quite the way that I'd hoped. I didn't intend to do a Trent Bosch knockoff on this idea, but I didn't set it up right to where when I started hollowing, the burls were centered, and so things got kind of wonky, and this whole opening became larger than what I really wanted to. So I had seen Trent's seminar and turned a walnut cap to go inside there and boiled it and got it to fit. And then this is a piece of oak burl, a big oak tree that I cut on my place several years ago, and just a really nice, pretty piece of wood. Chucked it up, had no idea of whether I was going to be able to get anything out of it or not, and really didn't have any idea of what shape it was going to start out. And it did hold together, but it was getting a little wonky on the hollowing, so it's not as clean on the inside as what it could be.
I know it's late. I'm going to slide in here real quick and show you something that is going to be a topic of special item at the silent auction or blind auction next month. This is an incredible sphere box that a donor made for us that is going to be, like I say, we're going to auction this off next week. It is threaded. It is finished beautifully inside. Oh, and it's even signed by Kevin Neely. Oops, darn. Anyway, this is going to be available for, like I say, the silent auction or as a featured item for a blind auction next month. And what's really neat about this is the special stand. You can put this any way you want to. No, this is gorgeous. It looks like Cocobolo on the rim here, Kevin, as well as Purple Heart and walnut. I mean, this is stunning. So just whet your appetite for next month, okay? All right. Next.
Well, if you don't see a clock for me, it's got to be a spinning top. At the thing down in Lee Summit, I did a little demonstration, so I had a chunk of walnut, just a walnut branch, and so I turned it top. And I'm almost completely happy with this. There's a ratio that I learned when you turn tops where, gosh, never tall enough, never too short enough, where when you turn tops, 5/4, where the length is 5/4 of the diameter. So I've got that. And the only thing that I'm not really happy about is when I turn these, I like to have this shoulder much more sharper in like that, and that a little smaller. It makes for a little bit nicer turning top and a little bit nicer shape. But, yeah, walnut top.
Hello, my name's Dave. I'm a new turner. Just joined the guild recently, and I was given the opportunity to go to the John Campbell School with Tom Boley. That guy is incredible. I mean, just a really, really great guy. Super instructor. I'd never turned a bowl before. We spent 5 days in the natural edge bowl category, learning how a bowl gouge works and you know how to produce a bowl from a log to a finished bowl. I turned several blanks to be dried, and he had turned a couple of things ahead of time that were already in the dry form when we got there. And then I was also in the weekend class for platter turning, so I learned how to turn a platter. These are the results from that place, and I will be going back at another time. That place is just an incredible place to go and learn. The atmosphere, the scenery, the people, the conversations, just an absolutely incredible place. I brought a case of catalogs back. They offer 50 categories, I think, and over 800 classes in the course of a year. And everybody's there for the same reason, and that's to just work for 4 or 5 days and produce just some amazing things. So I was really grateful for that opportunity, and I think I made a pretty good friend in the process. So Tom and I had a great time. So if anybody has a chance, take a look at the catalogs. It's a pretty neat place. Thanks.
I went out to the Lee Summit thing that we had, and needless to say, the demonstrator impressed me. And now I've used up all the tops I picked up over the years, and made a heck of a lot of birdhouses. Now I got to quit. Except I did have to make one rubber ducky.
So this is a piece of green red oak that I turned from a log, probably a width about that big. And the reason is because when you start to turn it, you're going to turn a dovetail and put it on a chuck, and then go ahead and then just do a straight shear scrape on the face side, and then kind of like tonight, the same process of just going down at about 1 inch at a time, making nice clean cuts, making sure you have that face all perfect, and then go down the next inch, and you just step on down till you leave yourself about a 50-cent piece, and then you have to cut that off. And then the trick is Costco lawn bags. So it goes in a Costco lawn bag, and within 2 days it ends up like this. And then the neat thing was I made a saddle, and I always, I just didn't like it laying like that, and so I kind of came up with this design because it just sets right real perfectly.
Okay. I haven't been here the last couple of meetings, so I'm making up for lost time. This was my challenge platter from a couple of months ago, and I attended the Jason Clark demo and made a Saturn bowl, and it does actually turn.
This is a project for me. It turned out that we have a wood pile in our neighborhood, and people bring trees there, pieces of trees and whatnot. So I noticed after one of the visits down there was a piece of wood that was crumbling on the edges, about this big and about 6 inches tall. And I said, "That's a really neat piece of wood. It sure is rotten." And so I took it home, put it on the lathe, and I turned till I got to some semi-real wood. And the shape is because this was kind of bunky wood, and so I just kept going till I got some spalted. It was a spalted piece of wood. Obviously, it had been out in the weather for a long time. But the nice thing is, it essentially was near dry, and so it didn't go around. I mean, go out around. And so, but I was really pleased with the colors, and the variation in it is just a natural finish. So I wish I could tell you what it was, but I'll have to qualify it as nice.
Said bring your favorite ones, and I guess the one that you finish last is always your favorite, or at least for me. So I just finished this today as a piece of walnut that I turned, and it just turned out well. And I haven't been turning for very long, but this is one where the wall thickness is right, and the inside feels good, and the outside feels nice, and it's just a beautiful piece of wood. So really like that. And the other side of it is I've been a woodworker for a lot of years, so I like doing glue-up stuff. And I saw this on, I think at Pinterest or something, kind of gave me an idea of how to make these, and it just turned out really pretty. And quite honestly, the wood on the outside here, if you look at it and you turn it, it's almost like a hologram. It just changes in color, and it's just really pretty. So.
Well, speaking of Pinterest, I saw a game, I guess, that was tops and beads that you created holes that the beads went into, and I got one made. I knew it wouldn't take all that much, but I got one made, and if you get a little too excited, they'll sometimes shoot off of there. So I was in here on Saturday, and Virgil said, "Well, what if you?" I wanted to make a lid for it, but he said, "Well, what if you made it clear?" And I had a piece of plexiglass, so drilled a hole in that and made a little rim for it, and now it contains it all, and it doesn't matter how far you go, how the beads stay in there. Virgil said glass, and I got some glass. And then the other thing that I've been playing with are these little top games, and I saw again something on Pinterest that it was just basically a dome inside a ridge, and I thought to take it a little further, I made it grass, and I put some traps in it, and I made a little flagpole for it, but the backside then is turned, so you can literally use that side to kind of practice playing with your top, and then this is a challenge. The challenge being to get up the ridge and drop in the hole. Fun little thing, very easy, 20-minute project, so I like that. I got other examples over there.
Down there in KC Woodturners a couple of weeks ago. But again, it's offset turning. I teach offset turning using